Okay, we've got a table and we can see we've got x's and y's, so we know this is correlation or regression. We've already had a regression question on this paper, so we're not very surprised when we see this talks about correlation. So read the stuff at the beginning so you know exactly what it means by x and y. Always read the words, but in fact you are doing the normal thing in part A. You're inputting the values into your calculator very, very carefully. Make sure you're in the correct mode and use your calculator to tell you what R is, and that's 3 marks for just quoting the correct value for R. If you have time left at the end of the exam, try the whole data entry all over again to make sure you've done it right, because it's all or nothing, getting the right value of R. And in part B, you've got to interpret your value in the context of the question. Now, in context really just means you've got to talk about what x and y are. So you've had to read those words, so you talk about purchase prices and auction prices, making it clear that you've read what's going on up there. But then, interpretation isn't really explaining in everyday language what's going on, it's using the right technical terms. So interpreting a correlation coefficient, you're going to be talking about whether you have got strong or fairly strong or not very strong or weak or no correlation, and you're going to mention whether any correlation you have got is positive or negative. So you're going to make a statement about the strength of the correlation, positive or negativeness of the correlation, and make sure you talk about what the variables x and y are to show the in-contextness of your answer for 2 easy marks. Then on part C, you've got to plot all of that on a scatter diagram for 3 easy marks. You'll comment on what this reveals. You're going to comment on, well, you can relate it to your value for your correlation coefficient, but you've already had marks for describing the amount of correlation. So these 2 marks really are not going to be for duplicating what you said, so you're looking for a pattern. And typically you're looking to see whether there are any outliers, because if there are outliers, then it could be there's a situation that ought to have very strong correlation, but the outliers are mucking that up. So identify any, comment that there might be possible errors, and maybe do a very brief comment on what the pattern might be if those outliers weren't included. Then in part D, 2 of the items are being omitted, and it's a fairly good guess that those would have been outliers you could have commented on above, and it gives you some summary statistics. This is partly so that people who don't have calculators that can do the calculations can get to the answers fairly quickly. You, if you've got a silver calculator, have a choice. You can take these 3 values and plug them into the formula from your formula book, or you can simply go back to your calculator, delete items J and L, and use the calculator's value of the correlation coefficient. It wouldn't be ethical examining to test that you've actually used these values here by making them deliberately wrong. So you've got 2 equally good ways of getting your new value for R. And then in part 2, you've got to revise as necessary your interpretation in part B. So having excluded the outliers, then your comment on about whether there is any correlation or the strength of that correlation is likely to vary, so you're making a suitable adjustment to your statement earlier on. And then you're done.